Hey everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Carmen David. I am an aortic dissection survivor and an aortic athlete.
And my name is Jack Crow, and I am also an aortic dissection survivor and an aortic athlete. Hi, Carmen.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Well, I'm so excited. I don't know about you, but I'm so excited to introduce our guest tonight to celebrate another aortic athlete who has completed the New York City Marathon just a week ago. Before we get to him, though, I want to just remind everybody if we have some aortic listeners, aortic athletes on Facebook, we'd love for you to join us there. We have about over 1,000 people now from all over the world that have joined us, which is spreading hope and inspiring others. So,
Carmen, we also want to remind people that uh, we're going to talk about marathons today. We're not encouraging everyone to run a marathon. We are
exactly.
all in, a little different place. So
Yeah, everybody's in a different place. And, just a reminder to make sure to talk to your providers before you're starting any exercise program. And it's a team effort.
yeah, and each of us is different. Some of us have dilations. Some are in watch and wait with aneurysms. Some, like Brian, have had repairs. Some, like you and I, Carmen, have had dissections. So each of us is going to be different. But the good news is there's some common things that we can all do to make sure we can exercise healthily. One of them is keep your blood pressure under 120 over 80 at rest.
Yes, and making sure that you're following your regular follow-up visits with your physicians as well.
And
Make
and
sure,
one, go ahead.
just making sure everything's stable.
Yeah, stability is the key. So, if you're make sure you're getting your imaging, and that'll tell you a lot. And I think also, particularly when we do aerobic exercise, is keep it moderate. Keep it moderate. Even if I'm jogging 10 miles, my heart rate is pretty low. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit with Brian in a few minutes, and find out what his heart rate is when he did the marathon. I think moderate exercise, the easiest test is, can I carry on a conversation? And if you can, you're probably exercising at a moderate level, and it should not be spiking your blood pressure.
Exactly. So, well, we'll start our conversation tonight with Brian Morel here. We'll just go ahead and dive in. And Brian, tell us how the marathon went.
Well, hey, nice to see you guys again. You guys have both done it, so you know what the experience is like. It was a really, wonderful marathon to be back to. I had previously done it in 2007, so long time ago, and it was great, from beginning to end. It's an orchestra. I think it was like the largest marathon ever. I think I read 56,000 or so people.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, just, from the minute you walk into the expo floor and you kind of see like how everything's organized, to kind of getting to the start line, to the actual race itself. I mean, do you want me to go into my actual race experience right away, or?
Well, first we want to hear, so there's some people who maybe don't know your story. So if you just kind of want, if maybe they missed that episode that we did with you. So if you can just briefly go over your running career prior to your diagnosis, what your diagnosis was, and maybe what surgery you had.
Yeah, okay. So I have been a pretty active endurance athlete for quite some time. I started doing triathlons in around 2000. And, between, since then to now, I've done over 100 endurance races. So I've done a lot of triathlons at all distances. I've done, I think, like just 8 standalone marathons, including the New York Marathon in 07. So I've done quite a few marathons. I've done an ultra, et cetera. So, kind of have that background behind me. I'm not quite as active these days in the kind of endurance world. I still, I mostly do some trail running. I do like half marathon trail runs here and there. I did a 50K ultra in 2019. That was like probably my last big event. But these days I'm more or less just kind of like running for fun. So not, as active. And in terms of like kind of my heart condition. And when that was first brought to my attention, was in 2020. I met with my GP for my physical, and they ended up noticing a irregular. I think I covered this on the last one, but just sort of like kind of go over it quickly again. They did an EKG. They kind of noticed a little bit of an irregular heartbeat. Then they did an ultrasound, and that's where they said, "Oh, it looks like you might have an enlarged aorta." They wanted me to kind of go have further scans to confirm that, and that's where it all kind of came about. And so that was a little bit of a surprise to me. My aorta was 4.7 when I was initially after my scans. I was able to confirm that, and so that was a little bit of a surprise. However, years before, I remember going to the doctor and them telling me that it looked like I had an enlarged heart, and they chalked that up to athlete's heart, which was, they kind of like sort of like said, "Oh, this is, not uncommon for somebody that does the type of things that you do." So when I got this aneurysm diagnosis, it made me think back to that time, like, okay, was something missed or whatever? Like I kind of sometimes wonder if I had a enlarged aorta this entire time and it just wasn't noticed until 2020. Like that's, I guess I'll never know that. But that's when I was discovered. They told me that they would monitor me until it grew to 5.5 centimeters, and then they would operate. Well, the following year they scanned me again. It had grown to 4.9 centimeters, and they said that they were going to operate. And I asked, why they kind of sort of changed the strategy. And they basically said, we need to look at your family history, which I have some family history. We need to look at the rate at which it's growing, and then basically kind of like the cost benefit evaluation. And so they decided to operate, and I was frankly completely fine with that. Nice to kind of get that out of the way and behind me. I had complete faith in my surgeon, great team at UCLA. And so I was operated in March of 2020. And that was went pretty smoothly. And within a week I was home. And then soon after that, I started, kind of walking and then kind of, gradually rebuilding my running.
Wow.
So Brian, one of our aortic athletes was wondering, so you decided to do the marathon, New York, and trained for it. And as you said, you hadn't been doing long distances since your surgery. And so how did that part of it go? And the person was wondering particularly, did you notice any change in your heart rate? And did you notice any change in your blood pressure when you were in the training phase for the marathon before New York?
I feel like, my heart rate, as I gain fitness, as always happens, right? As you gain fitness, your heart rate kind of, you're able to do more with less effort. So then you have a little bit of a lower heart rate. And so I feel like everything seemed normal. And I should also note too, my surgeons and my cardiologists have basically said, they haven't given me any restrictions, right? They've like basically told me, go live your life. This is what you do. This is what makes you happy. Go for it. So I haven't had anybody kind of like, screaming down my neck to, maintain any sort of specific heart rate guidelines or whatever. Note, I also haven't dissected as well. So I think, everyone's kind of situation is a little bit different. I would say I'm not maybe as fastidious about it. I don't know if I should admit that, but I do what I do. Generally, as you're kind of training for longer things, you want to kind of keep your heart rate in a lower zone. And I generally kind of in the a range of around 140 beats, give or take. Sometimes 130, 140, which is pretty low on my longer runs. So, and that's seems pretty normal relative to what I had experienced pre-surgery from what I call it. Probably wasn't as deep into it back then, though. I did do kind of like zone training and whatnot. So yeah.
Well, everything is relative. I'm 64. When I did the marathon last year, post aortic dissection, my average heart rate was 118. It was like jogging, Carmen, you don't get that, your heart rate that low when you jog, does it?
I cannot get that low, but I was maintaining around an average of 145 probably whenever
Yeah.
I was training. So
Are you
it was
guys
still a
on?
lot higher than some of these people who are able to low heart rate train. Maybe I just didn't have the patience to continue doing it that way either. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if I would have stretched it out longer, then maybe I could have gotten a little lower. But
I should also note, for what it's worth, I'm not on any blood pressure medicine or anything like that. I know that's probably a question that comes up or people wonder as well. But yeah, I'm also
you guys who just go from watching weight to surgery, what lucky ducks, man. Carmen and I, we got the beta blockers, we got the whole long list, we're medically managed. Our blood, if I didn't take my meds, my blood pressure would be through the roof, post dissection.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I, like I said, I acknowledge that, people that have had a dissection, your guidelines are going to be different. And frankly, I mean, kind of going through that experience, I just mentally, that's got to be a really
the worry is different.
Yeah, I mean, Carmen, your story's nuts. I mean, I can't even imagine like what you went through. I think everybody's story is like really nuts, but I feel really lucky. And again, I know that it's very different for me than it is for people who have dissected.
One last thing, and then I'll turn over to Carmen. The heart rate isn't really the indicator. We kind of use it as a surrogate for not going too crazy. But the real indicator is what's happening to our blood pressure when we exercise. Yeah. And I think Dr. Siddharth Prakash, who many of us listen to carefully because he's done a lot of studies on this, he said that, most aerobic exercise, your blood pressure tends to kind of go down over time. And unlike weightlifting, it doesn't have the big spikes, that can get to 200 or 300, over 160 or something like that. And that was really my case. So do you know at all? Have you ever looked at what happens to your blood pressure before, during, or after a run?
Yeah, I mean, I do look at it before and after run. I to be honest, I feel like it stays pretty steady. I don't notice a significant change from before to after. I mean, yeah, it's maybe a slight decrease, but nothing notable, to be honest. So, and my blood pressure is well below 120/80.
It's because you're incredibly fit.
Yeah, try to be, but yeah.
So what did you have to do in order to just even start training? Like, I guess the process with the team, not just, you getting started back into your own regimen.
Yeah, well, I would say, before I even knew about this, I had been doing a lot of just running. I mean, running is kind of the sport I like to do these days. It's just the easiest thing. I have a kid, and it's just the easiest thing to be able to like just walk outside and go for a run, versus my triathlon days where I was like biking and swimming and all this stuff. I don't even know how I had time to do that and how people have time to do that. It's like I just like to run, so it keeps me sane. So, but I was running, just anywhere from 3 to 5 miles a day, like during the week, and maybe on the weekend I'd run, up to 7 or 10 miles, like on the weekend at a time. But then this opportunity was presented to run the marathon, New York Marathon, and man, I've really wanted to run the New York Marathon again since, well, I'll be honest, since 2009, when that Jay-Z song Empire State came out. I don't know if you guys remember that song. When I heard that song, I said, man, one day I want to run the New York Marathon again, and I want to run down First Avenue and just hear that song just blaring, because it's kind of an anthem. And I love New York. I've lived in New York before. I spent a lot of time there with work and everything. So that was always something I really wanted to do. So when the opportunity was presented, I was ecstatic. So at that point, obviously, I needed to, and I had a good lead time. I needed to kind of create a plan that was going to help build up my mileage to, get me marathon ready.
So did you follow your own though, or did you like find a plan like online to do a 16-week training plan or something?
Yeah. So what I did was I kind of created my own plan, but I triangulated with like a few plans that I've used before, right? So there's a book called Advanced Marathoning, which I followed years ago when I was trying to qualify for Boston. And that was a really good training program that kind of peaks out at 55 miles a week. That's what I started to follow. In hindsight, I don't know if that was the smartest idea, because I'm now 55 years old. And when I was the last to use that plan was in, I think 2009 is when I qualified. And so that's a long, time, and I'm just a different person. And so I ended up getting injured. I had a hamstring pull.
Don't tell me you were doing speed work.
No, I wasn't really doing speed work. This happened on I did a little bit of, mild tempo stuff, but I kind of kept it pretty, nothing too, I wasn't going to the track or anything like that. So I just kind of, some marathon pace type runs and whatnot. But this a hamstring injury happened on a long run. Nothing crazy, it was just kind of going up a hill, and it just kind of went out. And so I had to stop running for 2 weeks and just nurse that. And then when I started running again, I then kind of had to create another plan that would kind of take me, help me rebuild. And there's not really a good formula for that. So what I actually did was I used ChatGPT, and I kind of put everything in, here's what I've done. And it kind of built, I kind of went back and forth with, ChatGPT to build my plan. And actually my original plan, I used ChatGPT as well. I triangulated all these different plans to kind of come up with the ideal plan for me. But that was really helpful, like kind of having this. And what I also did is I cut down the volume. And I have a really good friend of mine who's a sub-3 marathoner. He's roughly my age. He's ridiculous. And he basically said, he's like, look, I do 3 runs a week. I do like an aerobic run, sort of a tempo-ish run, and then a long run. And, he's like, that's it. And so I kind of went that route, kind of a lower volume as I recovered my injury. And I think that was a good thing. I think that hamstring injury, it certainly kind of affected my confidence a bit. Having to sort of, kind of stop, and, I didn't want to re-injure myself. So that was a big concern. So that was the training side. And then there was some stuff I had to do for Team Ritter. They wanted to see some scans, and they wanted me to have a genetic test and kind of, check all the boxes, which I appreciate that they want to make sure that.
So what were the factors? What did they want to see?
What did the Ritter Foundation want to see?
So you ran for Team Ritter. You were part of the team, and you raised some money for the organization, which we really support. But to get there as someone with aortic disease, they kind of, this is new, because when I did it last year, they didn't have any criteria. I think we kind of made it up as we went. It was sort of the part of it was the rule of reason. By the way, your training plan, you violated the aortic athlete training plan, which is little by little by little, not, hey, let's do 20. That's why you pulled that hamstring, buddy.
My apologies. Yeah, big forgiveness, I guess.
Hey, but so what were the Ritter criteria?
I think the main thing was just they wanted to see the latest scans. They wanted approval from my cardiologist, and they wanted me to have a genetic test, which I hadn't done previously. So that was good to get done. And so I kind of checked all those boxes, and then, went on my way. And so that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So when you get started, so you get in now and you're running for Team Ritter, you're there the day of. What are your thoughts when you're walking out of your hotel? Trying to get to, what is it called? The Village.
Yeah, it was, it was exciting. I, early wake up call, and at New York, you can opt to take the bus or you take the ferry. I had opted to take the bus. I had some reservations about that because the ferry, you kind of get that cool view of Statue of Liberty, which is a great way to start the race. Did you guys take the bus or the ferry?
Ferry.
Yeah, so I took the bus. It's right there in Midtown. In hindsight, the reason why I didn't take the ferry is I don't remember what I did in 2007, to be perfectly honest. I think I took the bus then as well. But my understanding is that with the ferry, you've got to then kind of get to Staten Island. You got to take a bus, and that can be a little chaotic. So I just wanted to kind of keep it easy. So I took the bus, and it was so perfectly orchestrated. It is mesmerizing to me, like how, it's like they should be running, armies and whatnot. It was so really nicely executed. Yeah, you're a military person. But so had a great bus ride. I sat next to this guy who's a famous magician in New York, so that was really fun. We had a nice chat. Chamber Magic on Instagram. So that was a really fun time. Dropped me off at the village, and I basically had 3 hours to kill in the village. And
Oh, wow.
the team Ritter was
3
supposed to meet
hours.
3
That's a
hours.
long time.
Yeah, well, that was actually not that long. I mean, my start, I was on a relatively early wave. Mine was 10:20, somewhere at 11:30 and whatnot. So mine was relative. I was wave 3, so it was relatively on the early side, and still, kind of just given, how early my bus ride was at 6 a.m. So just that's very early. So we were supposed to meet up with Team Ritter, and I looked forever to try to find my teammates, and I didn't see anybody where that was. So that was a little bit of a bummer, because I hadn't met anybody before. Like, there was an event the day before, but I had plans to take my family to Lion King. So that was my first kind of opportunity to meet everybody. And but I kind of killed time. They had some emotional support dogs, so that was kind of fun. I wasn't interacting with those, but I was kind of sitting near where people were, and that was kind of fun. And just kind of sat there, stayed warm, and ate food, ate bagels, and
I was about to ask, what's your, everybody's a little different when they go to run. That, like, I know they had Dunkin' Donuts giving coffee out and stuff, and so some people will get coffee and whatever to eat, and other people are like, no, I'm not gonna, like, that's out of their normal meal for prepping right before their run.
I'm a hard yes on coffee. Man, I mean, they like, I have coffee before I run all the time. I just drink black coffee. That's it. And so, and they basically kind of give you like a little Dixie cup worth of coffee. So it's like almost like not enough. Like, give me more of that. But yeah, I had coffee, and I ate a couple bagels and bananas and whatnot, and I had breakfast of oatmeal and banana at the hotel. So I tried to keep myself well nourished. And that's like a trick with this race too, right? Because most often when you're doing a long run on the weekends, you're not waking up at 6 and then starting a run at 10:30, right? So that's one of the challenges, as you guys know, with this run, is kind of like managing that morning and how you're going to like feed yourself and take care of all your bodily needs.
I've never done a marathon where I had to walk 3 miles to get to the start line. I mean,
you had to walk 3 miles?
But it's great. And you said there were 55,000. I think there were 50,000 last year. So they've increased the number of runners. And now, did you hear the announcement not to urinate off the top of the Verrazano Bridge onto the lower level that also has runners on it? Did you? I don't know.
Yeah, I was on the lower level, so I was very happy to hear that announcement. And yeah, I did not see the yellow rain.
So the gun goes off. What are you thinking? What are you thinking in that first mile on the Verrazano Bridge?
Yeah, I'm thinking, here we go. I was really excited. You could definitely feel the energy. Before the gun went off, I ran into some guy who was looked like Forrest Gump. He had like kind of like this old sort of like retro outfit and like a long hair and hat, and it just but yeah, it was just excitement. You could feel the palpable energy as like right before the gun goes off. Everybody's just kind of like super excited and just great spirits. If I could bottle that feeling, I would. It's like something great to just be able to tap into. But then at the same time, I was very kind of mindful of you're starting uphill. And we all know that excitement can then sort of translate into getting over your skis and going out too hard. And I wanted to approach this with the sort of Jack and I, we kind of went back and forth on this a while back, but I'm one, I kind of like to sort of challenge myself as best I can. I think Jack's like, well, go out and just have a good time. I'm like, Jack, man, like I like
because That's because
fast.
I'm 10 years
Yeah.
older than you.
What's that?
Because I'm
Yeah.
10 years older.
And I think I'm probably 10 or 15 years older than my mind thinks that I am too, is probably the problem. But you know, and I knew like I knew I was not going to be, you know, sort of as fast as I once was or whatnot. But so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna kind of, you know, try to, you know, push myself to, you know, hit, you know, whatever kind of what felt like a reasonable like time goal. And so I was kind of, you know, I think kind of focus on keeping it in check as I was.
So with the incline or not, you were just ready with your pace, like what you wanted to be at.
Yeah, well, I was running, I had a pace band, and the pace bands that they had this year were effort adjusted. So like the first mile kind of, you know, takes into account, okay, your you know, goal time is this, you're going up, you know, you're going uphill the first mile. So it kind of reflected what the yeah, what you should be running that first mile. So I was kind of like more or less in range, I think. Yeah.
But then, like a newbie, you went too fast. Did you
No,
think or no?
I maybe a little bit, but like nothing super crazy. Like I wasn't, you know, I you know, certainly wasn't, you know, anaerobic. I felt like I was keeping it in check. But you know, I later crashed. So, you know, something was miscalculated. And
Well, I was going to say too then, so what about the temperature? Was the temperature any different than what you expected that maybe caused you to crash? Like it was
no,
warmer? Or?
everything was perfect. Like
Yeah.
literally everything was perfect. Like there's no environmental reason or anything like that. Like everything was just absolutely perfect. I mean, you know, what I didn't do as I kind of, you know, reflect back on, like, say, my training, my goal with my training and what I typically have done in the past when I've trained for marathons, I mostly run like a lot of trails, a lot of hills.
Mhm.
With this training, given that it was like my first marathon back, I was more focused on just getting the distance down. And so I was just kind of, you know, running sort of in my area, which is like, you know, Venice, Santa Monica, which is not, you know, super hilly on kind of my day-to-day runs. I was looking to build up to like my mileage, and then I would spend time focused on kind of hills. Since I had that injury, I didn't get to do that. So I didn't really get to kind of like do as much hill training as I would have liked. And in hindsight, that might have been a thing that, you know, kind of impacted my race a little bit. And you know, because it's a hilly course.
They don't tell people from the Midwest that New York is hilly. I didn't know that till I got there.
It doesn't seem.
Yeah,
like
I didn't realize that either. But the thing I was about to say too, though, is, you know, him doing it by himself. You know, I did it with, there was like 6, 7 of us as a group. So I don't get those kind of hills here in Texas where I live. And so, you know, you try to go to some hilly neighborhoods to train, but you just can't replicate that.
Yeah.
And so, but when I got there, you know, you're just laughing and talking and carrying on with your friends. So it wasn't like, I didn't even think about it. So I would think it would be different when you're by yourself and you are actively thinking about, oh, this hill straight in front of me, you know?
Yeah. I can't imagine, like, you know, being in a place where you don't have hills and like that's not even an option, right? So
Well, not hills that are much, you know, of significance, I should say, I guess.
We call them overpasses. So did you ever think about quitting?
oh God, no. Like no, like yeah, that's definitely not an option. I would crawl to the finish if I had to. Like that's and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't that bad, right? I mean, I it probably wasn't until, you know, mile, you know, 14 or 15 when I could really kind of like feel it. And I aerobically, I felt fine. I just kind of felt like my legs were starting to kind of cramp. And I was hydrating. I was, you know, following my nutrition plan, like to the, you know, to the T, which more or less mimicked my, my, you know, kind of training in terms of my, you know, kind of hydration and whatnot. So yeah, taking in plenty of electrolytes and salts and whatnot. But yeah, it was like kind of after like I think mile 15, as we were kind of coming down that hill from the bridge into Manhattan. That's where I'm like, okay, this is going to be a fun, final 10 miles. So,
well, I was going to say, do you get any energy from that? I know they used to have a huge and loud crowd. So as soon as you come off of the bridge and you're making that kind of U-turn curve, it's just like this roar of people. And so I've heard others say how that is the area where they're just kind of about to, like, they're feeling it. They're about to start hitting a wall, but then they hear this roar of people in the streets and it kind of re-energizes them. Was it like that at all?
it was, yeah. It's really so amazing. That crowd on First Avenue. It certainly, I think, helped allay some of the misery for a brief moment, and then so yeah, for then a couple of miles, and then I ran. I think at mile 18 was where the Team Ritter Watch party was. So I ran to that spot and I stopped for like kind of a couple minutes. My family was supposed to meet me there and they had some logistical challenges getting there because they took the subway that they took dropped them off on Second Avenue and they couldn't figure out how to get across the street to the restaurant that was on the other side. So that was a whole thing. We ended up kind of connecting later on. Thank God I had my phone on me. But so yeah, I was able to, see the Team Ritter, and that was really fun. That kind of gave me a little bit of, momentary boost of energy. But yeah, from there on, I was like, I walked, a couple of periods and, sort of sulked a couple of times.
Well,
But
you weren't as slow as me. I think wasn't that the day the clocks were set back?
yeah,
So it
yep.
gets dark early. So I think I finished in the dark. You probably finished in the last vestiges of sunlight, probably.
Yeah, I finished around 10:20 to 4 hours and 37 minutes after that, whatever that is, two something,
How did
2:30.
it feel,
Yeah, I was
Brandon?
going to ask what your finish time was and what your pace goal was. Did you meet your pace goal with that time frame that you finished?
Not at all. So yeah, my my initial goal was, all right, I want to see if I can do this in under 4 hours, which I think that was nothing I ever thought about. And I, definitely did that last time I did this marathon. This, I'm like, okay, that's not a layup for me. I'm older, I've had heart surgery and whatnot, but it felt like an attainable challenge. After my injury, I then thought, well, I think I'm gonna, shoot for maybe like a 4:20, like, just basically like a 10-minute pace, which definitely felt doable. When I went to the expo and to get a pace band, they were out of the 4:20 pace bands and they were out of the 4 hours and like the 4:20s, like the real popular ones. So I'm like, 4:15, that's close enough. So I grabbed the 4:15 pace band. I was like following that one. I'm like, all right, I can, kind of just follow that roughly. And, if I'm a little slower, that's whatever. And that's kind of what I followed roughly up until, kind of mile 16 until I no longer followed that. It was kind of like just following the kind of just finish the race plan. So yeah, in my mind, I kind of thought, all right, yeah, 4:15, 4:20. And I came in at 4:37. So like I said, I'm not, I try not to have a lot of ego around that. Like I'd like to sort of push myself just to see, because it's kind of like a check of like what I can do. But it's like I do what I can do. I appreciate just the ability to be there. There's a lot of people that can't be there. There's a lot of people that, God, I've had friends die of like heart disease close. I mean, it's like, so it's like, it's really, you got to kind of keep it in perspective. Like we're out there because we're, the lucky few people to be out there. And the time is just kind of a, it's a whatever.
No,
It's a thing.
nobody's looking at the time. You had open heart surgery, so it's okay to walk a little bit at the end of a marathon. we give you permission. What was it like crossing the finish line?
Miserable.
The hamstring or just fatigue or what?
Well, so here's something that was kind of cool. So it was really fun running as part of a team. I ran into a teammate of mine who I hadn't met before. And, we ran together. We ran together for like maybe a mile at one point, and then we kind of got separated, and then we ran into each other again, maybe around mile 23, 24. And and she's like a vascular surgeon, like, really impressive woman. And we were kind of like running and chatting while she was chatting, and she was very chatty and really, really sweet. And I was kind of, trying my hardest to, be as engaging in response. But at one point I'm like, look, I'm sorry, I'm not being as chatty as you are. I'm just trying to get to the finish. So I was very happy to get to the finish line, and just very relieved. Yeah, it's such an exciting moment to cross that finish line and get that medal. And it's like a real heavy, like substantial, I should have worn my medal. It's just like such a, nice thing. It's a really kind of like, significant feeling and looking medal. It's really, really cool. So that was really fun. What was less fun was the long walk out of the finisher's gate. You literally have to walk like a mile, and I'm,
Right.
Look like I just got hit by a bus, just, like walking like a mummy. Like this, like, mile long. I checked clothes before, so, that was nice to get my, kind of warm clothes and whatnot. And then I had to take a subway back to the hotel and meet my family and whatnot. And, walking down the steps to the subway, that was a real ordeal. It's just, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I was going to ask if you had anybody at the finish line, or did you see any other besides maybe that one surgeon at the finish line before, winding through all the exit?
So I saw my family and notably my daughter at mile 22.5. So like they didn't make it to the watch party, but I took my phone off of airplane mode and looked at it while I ran, and we kind of coordinated where we would meet. And so I was able to see them at like mile 22.5. And that was really meaningful to me because, I have a 7-year-old daughter, got a late start, and, I want her to be inspired by, sort of just athletics and kind of like, this is what you do, right? It's like not a big deal, right? Right. This is kind of just part of, your DNA. We do stuff like this. And so like that really meant a lot to me to be able to see her. And so that was good. But then I didn't even try to coordinate meeting at the finish line because it's such a mess, and they sell tickets to the grandstand that allows people to watch that. And I'm like, that was not necessary. Like seeing them on the course was fine enough.
Yeah. I will say I have sat in the grandstands, and it is awesome to watch people across the grandstands. My really first year going to New York City, of course, I couldn't run, and my sister ran, and I couldn't hop around town at that point to all these different mile markers to see her. So I just bought a grandstands ticket and just saw all the para athletes, the elites, it was really neat. But imagine. It's hard to navigate getting out of there and back to your person, just like it would be on the street too. But it is exciting to see your people cross right there, but you do have to wait.
I can imagine. I mean, it's like, it's such a big deal for so many people, and it's so great. I mean, one of the things I love most about this marathon, in addition to the race itself, is the community around it. So it's like there are Facebook groups for the New York Marathon, and I'm on like different kind of Reddit groups related to the marathon, and so people are sharing their stories. You see people sharing what they've overcome. I read one the other day of this woman who got hit by a car over a year ago, and all the things that she had to overcome, and did something just amazing. I read one that I forwarded to somebody just like today, like some guy that he was an addict for many years and took up running like 13 months ago, and he ran like a 2:30 like marathon.
Oh my!
Wow.
Or it might have been a 2:50. I think it was maybe a 2:50, but still, I mean, it was. So it's like you see those things. Obviously the stories of people that like I used to weigh 250 or 300 pounds, and like I thrive off those feel good stories. Like
Brian, you've got a pretty good story yourself.
Yeah,
You're
I
right in
appreciate
there.
that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I do. And I think that I'm very fortunate, yeah, having, kind of gone through open heart surgery, but at the same time, I'm like, man, I didn't dissect, it's like everyone kind of has their own thing, right? And yeah,
So
so
we're
Yeah,
all,
I think everybody sometimes does that though, and it's not, you know, it's not bad to recognize, obviously, or arrogant to recognize that you do have your own story, but at the same time being, you know, humble enough to know that there are other people who have struggled a lot more and other stories, and recognizing and celebrating those victories too. So I get where you're feeling. Yeah.
yeah, it's so inspiring. So really, really cool.
so Brian, as we wrap it up, and Joshua's gonna see if there's some questions from our audience. We'll see Joshua in a minute here. First, I don't know if you knew, but thanks to the Ritter Foundation, everyone gets assigned either a vascular or thoracic surgeon for the last 2 miles. Did they tell you that?
Is
I'm
that why I
kidding.
had a vascular surgeon like
That's
running next?
why, yeah, it's normal.
Oh, it
Just
makes
in
sense.
case.
Jeez.
Just in case.
They could have, like, had a bartender running next to me. That would have been a
All right, and then what? Because you do have a story. What message do you have for other people with aortic disease? Maybe they just got diagnosed. Maybe they're in watch and wait. Maybe they've had surgery like you.
well. I think, I mean, my message is, like, don't give up on your goals, and your life isn't over. But I mean, you guys, don't change, adapt, right? Or, like, I think that's so true, right? It's good to have goals that helps kind of propel you through life. But just be prepared for your goals to maybe, be different than maybe what you're used to or whatever, right? It's like, so follow your goals, and also, listen to your doctors, and, follow the guidelines that are appropriate for you, because as you guys know, everybody's different. But, certainly I would highly encourage anybody, if they're interested in running, if you're not a runner, New York Marathon might not be your thing, but if you're interested in running, I saw somebody posted on the Facebook, the group, earlier today, they wanted to do New York Marathon next year, and they kind of had questions about it. I'm like, man, go for it. As long as your doctor clears you, you got time to, you got a year to get. And you know what? I mean, you see, people that are 80, 90 years old that do it. Like, you see people like walking most of the way. So I don't think completing it is, you might walk and you might take all day, or walk, run, and it's all good. Again, it's like no
You're still
judgment.
finished.
You still finish, and there's no judgment. And again, you don't get the sense that, like, people kind of like walk around sort of like swagger, like, and like look down on people based on, like, there's none of that. I don't get the sense. So it's all good, but just go. It's like such a great experience. And so if this is a goal that interests you, I would say, you know, make it happen, because you can do it. Like, it's so cool. It's the best. Like, I've done a lot of races, and I think the New York Marathon is probably like my favorite.
So what's next on your goal list?
Eating donuts. I
Great.
honestly,
What other exercise plans do you have for your future?
do you want to know the honest truth? When I was running that, I'm like, man, am I too old for this stuff? Like, am I? And I hate to go there. I was just I'm like, I don't know if I'll do a marathon again. Like, to be honest, like, I really like trail running, like that. As much as I like the kind of the huge energy of like a New York Marathon, I really like the kind of the chill atmosphere of running in the trails. And so I'd like to do another 50K again, and then maybe, like, I've never done a 50 miler. So like that sort of, kind of maybe out there in the distance, but we'll see. Like, right now, like, I'm kind of taking a little bit of a break from running for, a week or two. Rode my bike today, so we'll see. I don't want to force anything. This was nice. This kind of happened very organically, and I'm really thankful for it. And we'll kind of see what happens. I like having challenges. That kind of motivates me, but I don't have anything picked out just yet.
Awesome.
Joshua.
Well, congratulations. It's amazing what you were able to accomplish right here with the New York City Marathon. So
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for, supporting me. That felt really nice to have your guys' support and everyone, kind of showing interest. That really, that meant a lot to me. So thank you.
We're all in it together.
Yeah.
Joshua, any comments or questions?
We definitely have some people to say hi to. Let's see. So Molly jumped in. She said, hi, thank you everyone. And I'm also an aortic dissection survivor and aortic athlete. Hi, Molly. Michael Lopresti says, Brian, did you do any cross training for the marathon or was it just running?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah. So that's one thing that I have really tried to focus on for the last year plus. You have to do a little bit more intentionally too, because like with triathlon, that just kind of happened naturally, right? As you're swimming, biking, running, you're working out different muscle groups. I have tried to strength train a couple times a week. So I do like 60 minutes on Sunday, and then like a shorter strength session on like midweek. And then I've also done PT. I've been dealing with knee issues as well, and that's because hip flexor issues and whatnot. So also doing PT. So I did do that cross training. And then I did a little bit of cycling. And certainly the 2 weeks that I didn't run, I just basically rode my bike and did that to kind of maintain aerobic fitness.
And we should say that Michael Lopresti, we hope to interview him coming up, because I think the same weekend you ran, excuse me, he did 130 plus mile ultra in New Hampshire.
Car, right? He drove a car?
No, he
No.
ran. And so stay tuned, because we're going to try to get Michael in your seat here.
Good job, Michael.
Brian. And he's in your camp too, in that he's a repair. He's not a dissection person, but a repair. And so pretty
super cool.
Exciting.
I love it.
Right.
Joshua.
Ken Kazulu says hi. He's hitting us up from tomorrow. He's in Australasia.
All right.
Tabitha,
our Aussie buddies.
Yeah, Tabitha Howell Singleton says, this is so inspirational. I was afraid to get back into sports after dissecting twice. Mm-hmm. Thanks for being with us, Tabitha. Absolutely.
Yeah, and Tabitha, Carmen and I are like you. We've dissected, and I have a medically managed dissection. Carmen has a medically managed dissection. And again, I think for us dissection folks, it's that little by little by little rule. There's no quick jumps. There's no, I go from a 10K to an ultra. That's not how it works. And so I think our motto, don't quit, adapt, is, just find a way that you can adapt consistent with your cardiologist and with your current state.
Yeah. Agreed.
I like
and good
that.
luck.
Bernie says he couldn't find them. He couldn't find you guys. He went to this was his first time spectating the New York Marathon. He said it was an incredible scene.
Wait, who is that?
John Brenny.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah. He messaged me. I'm so bummed that, it was really nice that he showed up, and we did not connect. So
I think he came down from Connecticut.
Well, I should have thought to direct him to the Team Ritter watch party, but I spaced on that. So my bad, but it was really nice to have another aortic athlete out there, and hopefully he kind of got the bug. Who knows?
He's a biker.
He is a biker. Tom Newetner jumped in to say hello. Greer Schneider says, thank you for sharing your story. So what's next? What motivates you now?
Yeah, right now I'm kind of resting, and we'll see. I honestly, like I say, I'd like to get back to, something trail running. Like last year I focused more on, kind of like hiking, I did this kind of Southern California 6-peak challenge, climbed 6 10,000 foot plus peaks. So that was a fun kind of thing. And I don't know, who knows? Like we'll see. Like I'd like to have, some sort of a, goal on store, but I really don't know. I'll keep you all posted. Yeah.
Rock
Need to
on.
digest.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like eating Thanksgiving dinner and say, what are you having for, lunch tomorrow? Like, I don't know. Still digesting.
All right, and our very own founder, Karen Anderson, jumped in to say, great job, very inspirational. I'm working up to walking fast.
Beautiful. I
Keep
think
it up,
that's
Karen.
the best comment of all.
Yeah.
That, Karen, you are so right. If you love to go, if your thing is walking, you can walk, instead of a 20-minute mile, you can walk a 19.5-minute mile once a week. Little by little by little, you can just enjoy just increasing the speed walking. That's beautiful. I think that's great.
I love walking.
I do a lot of walking.
I listen to podcasts. It's so great. So I'm down with that.
Right on, and that catches us up to chat.
All right.
All right. Well, Carmen, do you want to take us out?
I'll let you take us out, Jack.
Well, Ryan, we're so proud of you. We're so glad that you've shared this story with this community of aortic athletes. There's, we have 1,000 people from all around the world, and a person like you who's able to do it, do an endurance event like this and does it successfully. You're a beacon of light for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys if it weren't for you guys, this wouldn't have happened. So I owe you guys for the opportunity. I'm really, thankful and proud to be part of the community. You guys do a great job. It's like these online communities, you learn so much and people inspire each other and learn from each other. So I really am so fortunate to be, part of it and have given the opportunity. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome.
Good night, all.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Peace.